When the end, W-O destroys
Anything less would be civilized.
Hey, what is going on, friends, fellow wisdom seekers, fellow truth seekers, everybody? Welcome to the brave new world order, straight out the dungeons of podcasting. I am your host, Brandon St. One. Thank you all so much for joining me for this episode as we swan dive headfirst into the abyss that is Enoch, one of the most fascinating figures from the Bible and from many ancient texts that actually predate the Bible. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. Before we read through section 1 of the Book of Enoch, we're going to read the Book of the Watchers in its entirety. But before we do that, I want to dive a little bit into this book that I read called The Lost Scriptures of Giza by Jason Breshears, because it talks a lot about Enoch. And I want to talk about what it has to say and talk about the theory that's in it, that Enoch was responsible for the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. It's one of the most mind-blowing books that I've read. It has so much information in it, but we're just going to go through all the stuff that talks about Enoch, because Enoch spans across the world. Many civilizations, ancient civilizations, have a figure in their mythology, in their writings, that represents this mysterious Enoch figure. So we're going to dive into all of that. A couple of episodes ago, I talked about the Book of Enoch. I talked about the Watchers, the fallen angels that descended upon Mount Hermon. They made a pact against God to take human wives and bear children. I also talked about the mind-blowing stele that was found on Mount Hermon in the 1800s that corroborates the story of the Watchers. So if you haven't listened to that yet, definitely go check that out. And if you're enjoying the brave new world order, take a second to subscribe to the podcast, smash that like button, leave a review, share this with anybody that will listen to you. Get this information out there. Let's break the algorithm. Let's reach critical mass. It's the only way that this is going to get done. The algorithm definitely doesn't favor shows like this one. I know for sure my previous 2 episodes I did on the Donald Trump assassination attempt, I can see in the analytics there's a metric called impressions. And for these past 2 episodes that I did, my impressions for them are about half of my previous episodes. I've been getting some steady growth and more eyes on the show, and I can monitor that type of thing. And it's just funny that these past 2 episodes, I talked about the Donald Trump assassination attempt. It seems like it's shadow banned or something. I don't really know. I don't think it's just me. I think there's just certain terms out there, and they're all colluding big tech to make sure they squash certain terms. It's funny because there was some controversy regarding Google and ChatGPT and how they're talking about the Donald Trump assassination attempt and how it's not coming up in searches, like autofill searches, when if you type any president's name and an A afterwards, usually it will show assassination attempts. And it doesn't for Donald Trump, which that just happened a couple weeks ago. And it seems like they're trying to make it not such a big deal. But I'm going to do a part 3 on that in the very near future. But I just wanted to bring that up because I was asking you all to share the podcast, because there's a massive censorship industrial complex that we're up against. And that's proof of it, that the 2 most recent episodes of my podcast, dealing with one of the biggest news events to happen in a very long time, just seem to just get no impressions at the same time that Google is squashing search results. ChatGPT is altering what actually happened that day. So yeah, spread this shit far and wide. Help the podcast out. Help get the information out, because that's what it's really about. Leave a comment, a review wherever you listen to this podcast. You can leave comments now on Spotify. You could reach out. This will be on YouTube. If you want to head over there to get the conversation started, just reach out. You know what to do. So now that I got that all out of the way, rambled on a little bit, let's dive into the Lost Scriptures of Giza and the Book of Enoch, Chapter 1, Book of the Watchers. If you haven't been able to tell by now, I am a little bit obsessed with this Enoch character. I want to know more, and the more I learn, I want to share with all of you. So I read this book, The Lost Scriptures of Giza by Jason Breshears. He has an amazing YouTube channel called Archaics. Go check that YouTube channel out. Lots of information. And also check out the other books that he's written. There's a bunch of them. I highly recommend Awaken the Immortal Within and When the Sun Darkens. Both amazing collections of information, nonstop. And the same goes with The Lost Scriptures of Giza. And I want to dive into a little bit about what he has to say about Enoch and how he believes that Enoch was responsible for the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Amazing information in this book. Really out there stuff, but that's what I like. And it's very well sourced. So you can pick a passage that he throws out there from the Bible or from Sumeria, and you can go find it yourself. Get inspired to dive deeper into these ancient texts on your own. So let's dive into the Lost Scriptures of Giza. First chapter, The Pillar of Enoch. And in this chapter, Jason Breshears lays out the theory that there is a universal belief throughout antiquity spread across the world, and that was done by this man Enoch. And that's what we call him because of the Old Testament, from which he is named the seventh descendant of Adam. He's actually referenced very few times in Scripture, and it's very vague, other than being described as the man who was holy, a man of virtue, and he was taken physically from earth by the Creator. But other than that, he's not really talked about much in the Old Testament. And as for the New Testament, he's not really mentioned by name, but some of the themes and ideas from Enoch are mentioned by people like Jesus and Peter. So some of the passages from the New Testament show that these people were familiar with the Book of Enoch. I found some passages from the New Testament that kind of line up with Enoch. In 2 Corinthians, Paul says he visited the third heaven where paradise is. And this idea of the 7 heavens, that was presented in the Book of Enoch. And then Jesus tells a parable about the eschatological kingdom. He tells about the man who is bound feet and hands and thrown into the darkness. And that is pretty much word for word the story of Samyaza, the leader of the Watchers. 1 Peter 3, chapters 19 through 20 mentions the imprisonment of angels during Noah's time and how their sentence was declared to them. Pretty much the same story of the rebellious fallen angels from Enoch 1. Also, Jude, chapters 6 through 7, also mentions how the angels indulged in sexual immorality and pursued strange flesh, resulting in their imprisonment. So just a few examples out of the New Testament that shows that most likely Jesus and his followers were very familiar with the Book of Enoch. So I just wanted to give you a few examples of that before we get into the Lost Scriptures of Giza, which dive more into Sumeria and Babylon and talk about some other figures named in some ancient writings that may just be Enoch as well. So the Sumerians held that long ago, a time before the Great Deluge, the great flood that destroyed their cities and killed many of their people, there was a powerful king who ruled named Etana, and this king ascended into the heavens, and historians date him around 3100 BC, and Jason Breshears believes that Enoch was indeed alive at this time. And he also finds it to be no strange coincidence that the most ancient as well as the most sophisticated calendrical systems the world has ever known all began about this time. That's 3100 BC. In Genesis, It provides a genealogical list for the 10 patriarchs before the flood, and the Sumerian texts also relate that the world prior to this flood was ruled by a lineage of men who were later usurped by the 7 kings, and that happened 600 years before the Great Flood. The Sumerians listed them as kings on the Sumerian kings list, but in the Old Testament, they are referred to as the patriarchs. And there are old Hebrew writings that convey that Enoch was not merely a prophet, but he was an emperor who ruled over many kings and princes. So that's a little bit of information from Sumeria. Now we're on to Babylon and a mysterious figure known as Utu-Abzu. He was the 7th sage. Remember, in the Old Testament, Enoch is the 7th patriarch from Adam. So in Babylon, we have Utu-Abzu, who is the 7th sage, who ruled over an unusual ministry that involved the divine residence of the abyss, where these ancient beings that rebelled against the Creator and were confined under the earth until an appointed time. For this reason, his name Utu-Abzu was given to him because it means brother of the deep. And he was also taken up into heaven to never be seen or heard from ever again. So Utu-Abzu sounds a lot like Enoch. And the next thing that's mentioned in the Lost Scriptures of Giza is the Book of Sirach, that has a whole lot of Enoch written in it. This is written in 196 to 175 BC. And the author of this book, in the prologue, wrote that it seems like he discovered the book, that he didn't write it. It says, quote, "I found a book of no small learning. Therefore, I thought it most necessary for me to bestow some diligence and travail to interpret it." He wrote, "It containeth therefore wise sayings, dark sentences, and parables, and certain particular ancient godly stories of men that pleased God." The book details the lives of many biblical people like Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and David. But Sirach reads, "But upon the earth was no man created like Enoch, for he was taken from earth." And this text, the Book of Sirach, is not part of the Jewish canon or any Christian canon other than the Catholics and some Eastern Orthodox. It is, of course, a part of the Apocrypha, which seems to be where all the juicy stuff is, like the next thing we're going to talk about, the Book of Jubilees, which says about Enoch, quote, "He, Enoch, was the first one from among the children of men that are born on the earth to learn writing and knowledge and wisdom, and he wrote the signs of heaven according to the order of the months in a book. He was the first to write a testimony, and he testified to the children of men concerning the future generations of the world, and what was and what will be. He saw in a vision of the night in a dream, as it will happen to the children of men in their generations until the day of judgment. He saw and learned everything and wrote it as testimony and laid the testimony on the earth over all the children of men and their generations." And the Book of Jubilees that quote is from presents a history of the division of the days of the law and of the testimony of the events of the years, of their weeks, of their jubilees throughout all the years of the world. The chronology given in Jubilees is based on multiples of 7. The Jubilee year is the year that follows the passage of 7 weeks of years. So that's 7 cycles of sabbatical years, or 49 total years, into which all of time has been divided. It's also interesting in the Book of Jubilees, it states that Enoch's wife was this woman named Edna. The Book of Jubilees dates to about 100 BCE based on a handwriting, but there is a lot of evidence to suggest that Jubilees was written well before that date. J. Amanda Guire argues that Jubilees was written in 100 to 150 BC by a Palestinian Jew of priestly background and Hasidic or Essene persuasion, based on his knowledge of Canaanite geography, biblical festivals, and laws. I really wanted to go through all of this information about Enoch, not just because Enoch is super fascinating, but it also gives me the opportunity to talk about these other texts from the Apocrypha, these ancient texts. So not only is this a deep dive exploration into Enoch, this is also a deep dive exploration into some of the other books of the Apocrypha, because it's not just Enoch that's super fascinating, it's all of them. They all tell some pretty interesting tales if we choose to dive deeper. But you could also check out the Lost Scriptures of Giza and get lots of this information consolidated into an amazing book. So let's keep going through some of this and talk about another lost book that mentions Enoch, the Book of Yasher, which is even older than that of Sirach and the Book of Jubilees. It's so old that even Jewish historian Flavius Josephus didn't know about the book, and most people didn't know about it outside of the temple in Jerusalem about 2,000 years ago. It's more extensive than any of the biblical writings. Even in the biblical books of Joshua and 2 Samuel, it is mentioned by name. And both of the references read, "Is this not written in the Book of Yasher?" So this book is crazy old, and it says about Enoch, and the soul of Enoch was wrapped up in the instruction of the Lord, in knowledge and in understanding, and he wisely retired from the sons of men, and secreted himself from them for many days, and all the kings of the sons of men, both first and last, together with their princes and judges, came to Enoch when they heard of his fame, and they bowed down to him, and they also required of Enoch to reign over them, to which he consented, and they all assembled 130 kings and princes, and they were all under his power and command. And Enoch taught them wisdom and knowledge in the ways of the Lord, and he made peace amongst them. And peace was throughout the earth during the life of Enoch. And Enoch reigned over the sons of men 243 years, and he did righteousness and justice with all his people. So according to the Book of Yasher, Enoch ruled over 130 princes, established a kingdom that ruled for over 243 years. The Book of Yasher, extremely old. Nobody quite knows exactly what the date is, but it predates many of the canonical texts of the Hebrew Bible and the Old Testament, because, like I said earlier, it is referenced by name by two older Bible verses, 2 Samuel and Joshua. I'm telling you guys, read the Lost Scriptures of Giza. There's so much more to it that I'm going to talk about in this episode. It has way too much stuff to get into, but you got to definitely read that. It's awesome. But there is a bunch more I'm going to talk about. So you'll get your fix. Don't worry, because now we're going to talk about the Book of the Secrets of Enoch, also known as Second Enoch, the Slavonic Enoch, or the Slavic Enoch, which was lost for over 1,200 years and resurfaced from manuscripts from Russia and Serbia, hence the name Slavonic Enoch or Slavic Enoch. In this book, Adam was commanded by God to preserve the sacred books and writings of Adam and Seth. It says, so that they perish not in the deluge which I shall bring upon thy race. These books also contained many of the secrets of God and the creation learned by early men. It was Enoch's duty to ensure that these writings and mysteries would not be lost in the cataclysm known as the flood. Jason Breshears believes that these divine instructions were given to Enoch, who passed them down to his sons at the death of Adam, the 243rd and final year of the prophet king's reign. Two old manuscripts, both having survived millennia at separate locations, mention this 243rd year of Enoch. And it was at this exact time, according to the Book of Yasher that we just talked about, that Enoch learned that he was to ascend into heaven and not return. It reads, Enoch assembled all the inhabitants of the earth and taught them wisdom and knowledge and gave them divine instructions. And he said unto them, I have been required to ascend unto heaven. I therefore do not know the day of my going. So these divine instructions that he gave his people, the Sethites, before the oncoming flood, it concerned preservation of knowledge imparted by God to humanity from the days of Adam, and it was up to Enoch to preserve this knowledge somehow. How could he preserve such great knowledge when a great flood was coming? Well, Jason Breshears believes that these divine instructions concerned a massive construction project designed to preserve the writings of the old world in such a way that humanity would gain access to them once again at a future date, long after their own world was gone. Such a method of preservation would require a monument sufficiently large enough to survive the waters of the flood. So in front of everybody, Enoch ascended into heaven on a cloud, and according to the secrets of Enoch, his descendants, the Sethite descendants, immediately went to work. Methuselah, who was Enoch's son, and his brethren, all the sons of Enoch, made and erected an altar at the place called Akuzan, the same place where Enoch had been taken to heaven. So this was the altar that God promised to Adam. It was built at the middle of the earth where the Sethites actually buried Adam, and it's the same location that Enoch ascended up to heaven. So it's looking like Enoch might have built the Great Pyramid of Giza, and there's some evidence of such in the actual Book of Enoch itself, where he has a vision of the Great Pyramid and its relation to the Tree of Life. In it, he called it a mountain of fire at the middle of the earth. Enoch describes its stones as brilliant and beautiful, splendid to behold. An angel tells Enoch, that mountain thou beholdest, the extent of whose head resembled the seat of the Lord, will be the seat on which shall sit the holy and great Lord of glory, the chief cornerstone, the everlasting King, when he shall come and descend to visit the earth with goodness. That is from the Book of Enoch, chapter 24, which you will be hearing very soon in its entirety, section 1, the Book of the Watchers. But as you heard there, Enoch is describing the coming of Christ, the chief cornerstone, the stone that the builders rejected. And if you know anything about the Great Pyramid of Giza, it is missing its capstone. And more about Christ, too, in Enoch 46, where we find that Enoch at the court of heaven beheld the Ancient of Days, the Creator, and another figure named the Son of Man, who would come to earth and break the power of the mighty and lay low the kings of the world. It was revealed to Enoch that the Son of Man was ancient, his name invoked in heaven before the sun and stars were created. He, the Christ, would be a support, a pillar for the righteous, and shall be the light of the nations. So the Great Pyramid of Giza is now connected to Enoch and connected to Christ, who's going to descend down upon the top of the pyramid, because he is the capstone, right? He's the chief cornerstone. And when he returns, the pyramid will then be complete. That is according to the Book of Enoch, of course. Who knows what the hell's really going on here? But I'm just saying, I was raised a Catholic, and I left. But if they taught me this shit, about pyramids and giants and Nephilim, fallen angels, making secret pacts, coming down to earth on Mount Hermon. They didn't teach me this shit in CCD on Sundays, getting ready for my communion, which was like the last thing I did. I didn't do the confirmation. I was a bad Catholic. I probably knew it way deep down inside that the Catholic Church was corrupt way back then, and that I was destined to look into all of their corruption and evil deeds. I'm just fulfilling prophecy. What can I say? I don't have a choice. It was meant to be. That's why I'm here talking to all of you right now. You're listening to these words about the Book of Enoch, the Lost Scriptures of Giza. It was all meant to happen exactly like this. So I want to thank everybody for joining me on this journey, diving into all this crazy stuff. We're going to go through the Book of Enoch, Section 1, Book of the Watchers, in its entirety, because I think everybody should experience it, and I want to share it with everybody, share it with the world, and anybody that chooses to come along with me can do so. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank everybody that listens to this podcast, that likes, shares, that smashes the like button, that ever so gently pokes the like button. However you choose to do it, that is your choice. Just make sure that you do it if you enjoy the Brave New World Order podcast. Help out. Share this with your friends, your family, your co-workers, anybody that will listen to you. Strangers on the street, cashiers at the checkout. Say, hey, you know about Enoch? Well, check this shit out. And tell them about the Brave New World Order. You know what to do if you're enjoying the podcast. So that's enough out of me. Thank you all once again. Much more Brave New World Order to come very, very soon. Peace out, everybody. Don't go anywhere, though. Here is the Book of Enoch, Section 1, Book of the Watchers. The Book of Enoch, Introduction. The Book of Enoch is an ancient Jewish religious work ascribed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah. It is not regarded as scripture by Jews or any Christian group apart from the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which to this day regards it to be canonical. Western scholars currently assert that its older sections, mainly in the Book of the Watchers, date from about 300 BC, and the latest part, the Book of Parables, probably was composed at the end of the 1st century BC. However, Ethiopian scholars generally hold that Ge'ez is the language of the original from which the Greek and Aramaic copies were made, pointing out that it is the only language in which the complete text has yet been found. It is wholly extant only in the Ge'ez language, with Aramaic fragments from the Dead Sea Scrolls and a few Greek and Latin fragments. There is no consensus among Western scholars about the original language. Some propose Aramaic, others Hebrew, while the probable thesis, according to E. Isaac, is that Enoch 1, as Daniel, was composed partially in Aramaic and partially in Hebrew. A short section of 1 Enoch is quoted in the New Testament, letter of Jude, and there apparently attributed to Enoch, the seventh from Adam. It is argued that all the writers of the New Testament were familiar with it and were influenced by it in thought and diction. The first part of the Book of Enoch describes the fall of the Watchers, the angels who fathered the Nephilim. The remainder of the book describes Enoch's visits to heaven in the form of travels, visions, and dreams, and his revelations. The book consists of 5 quite distinct major sections: the Book of the Watchers, the Book of Parables of Enoch, also called the Similitudes of Enoch, the Astronomical Book, also called the Book of the Heavenly Luminaries or Book of Luminaries, the Book of Dream Visions, also called the Book of Dreams, and finally, the Epistle of Enoch. The shared view is that these 5 sections were originally independent works, with different dates of composition, themselves a product of much editorial arrangement, and were only later redacted into what we now call 1 Enoch. This view is now opposed only by a few authors who maintain the literary integrity of the Book of Enoch. One of the most recent, in 1990, being the Ethiopian Wasani Yifru. Joseph Milik has suggested that the Book of Giants found amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls should be part of the collection, appearing after the Book of Watchers in place of the Book of Parables. But for various reasons, Milik's theory has not been widely accepted. Canonicity in Judaism. Although evidently widely known at the time of the development of the Jewish Bible canon, 1 Enoch was excluded from both the formal canon of the Tanakh and the typical canon of the Septuagint, and therefore also the writings known today as the Apocrypha. One possible reason for Jewish rejection of the book might be the textual nature of several early sections of the book, which make use of material from the Torah. For example, Enoch 1 is a midrash of Deuteronomy 33. The content, particularly detailed description of fallen angels, would also be a reason for rejection from the Hebrew canon at this period, as illustrated by the comments of Trypho the Jew when debating with Justin Martyr on this subject. Trypho says, "The utterances of God are holy, but your expositions are mere contrivances, as is plain from what has been explained by you, nay, even blasphemies, for you assert that angels sinned and revolted from God." All right, that was the introduction to the Book of Enoch. Now, let's get into the text. This is the Book of Enoch, Part 1, translation by Michael Knibb of the original Ethiopian text from the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London. Section 1, Book of the Watchers. Chapter 1. These are the words of the blessing of Enoch, according to which he blessed the chosen and righteous, who must be present on the day of distress, which is appointed for the removal of all the wicked and impious. And Enoch began his story and said, There was a righteous man, whose eyes were opened by the Lord, and he saw a holy vision in the heavens, which the angels showed me. And I heard everything from them, and I understood what I saw, but not for this generation, but for a distant generation that will come. Concerning the chosen I spoke, and I uttered a parable concerning them. The Holy and Great One will come out of his dwelling, and the eternal God will tread from there upon Mount Sinai, and he will appear with his host, and will appear in the strength of his power from heaven. And all will be afraid, and the watchers will shake, and fear and great trembling will seize them, up to the ends of the earth, and the high mountains will be shaken, and the high hills will be laid low, and will melt like wax in a flame, and the earth will sink, and everything that is on the earth will be destroyed, and there will be judgment upon all, and upon all the righteous. But for the righteous he will make peace, and he will keep safe the chosen, and mercy will be upon them. They will all belong to God, and will prosper, and be blessed, and the light of God will shine on them. And behold, he comes with 10,000 holy ones, to execute judgment upon them, and to destroy the impious, and to contend with all flesh concerning everything that the sinners and the impious have done and wrought against him. Chapter 2. Contemplate all the events in the sky, how the lights in the sky do not change their courses, how each rises and sets in order, each at its proper time, and they do not transgress their law. Consider the earth and understand from the work that is done upon it, from the beginning to the end, that no work of God changes as it becomes manifest. Consider the summer and the winter, how the whole earth is full of water, and the clouds and dew and rain rest upon it. Chapter 3. Contemplate and see how all the trees appear withered, and all their leaves are stripped, with the exception of the 14 trees which are not stripped, which remain with the old leaves until the new come after 2 or 3 years. Chapter 4. And, again, contemplate the days of summer, how at its beginning the sun is above it. You seek shelter and shade because of the heat of the sun, and the earth burns with scorching heat, and you cannot tread upon the earth or upon a rock because of its heat. Chapter 5. Contemplate how the trees are covered with green leaves and bear fruit, and understand in respect of everything, and perceive how he who lives forever made all these things for you, and how his works are before him in each succeeding year, and all his works serve him and do not change. But as God has decreed, so everything is done. And consider how the seas and rivers together complete their tasks. But you have not persevered in nor observed the law of the Lord, but you have transgressed and have spoken proud and hard words with your unclean mouth against his majesty. You hard of heart, you will not have peace. And because of this, you will curse your days, and the years of your life you will destroy, and the eternal curse will increase, and you will not receive mercy. In those days, you will transform your name into an eternal curse to all the righteous, and they will curse you sinners forever. For the chosen, there will be light, joy, and peace, and they will inherit the earth. But for you, the impious, there will be a curse. When wisdom is given to the chosen, they will all live, and will not again do wrong, either through forgetfulness or through pride. But those who possess wisdom will be humble. They will not again do wrong, and they will not be judged in all the days of their life, and they will not die of wrath or anger, but they will complete the number of the days of their life, and their life will grow in peace, and the years of their joy will increase in gladness and eternal peace all the days of their life. Chapter 6. And it came to pass, when the sons of men had increased, that in those days there were born to them fair and beautiful daughters. And the angels, the sons of heaven, saw them and desired them. And they said to one another, Come, let us choose for ourselves wives from the children of men, and let us beget for ourselves children. And Semyaza, who was their leader, said to them, I fear that you may not wish this deed to be done, and that I alone will pay for this great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath, and bind one another with curses, so not to alter this plan, but to carry out this plan effectively. Then they all swore together and bound one another with curses to it. And they were, in all, 200. And they came down on Ardis, which is the summit of Mount Hermon. And they called the mountain Hermon, because on it they swore and bound one another with curses. And these are the names of their leaders: Semyaza, who was their leader; Yorakiba, also known as Arakiel; Ramiel, Kokabiel, Tamiel, Ramiel, Daniel, Ezekiel, Bariquiel, Azael, Amaros, Batariel, Ananel, Zakiel, Samsiel, Sartariel, Turiel, Yomiel, Sariel. These are the leaders of the 200 angels, and of all the others with them. Chapter 7. And they took wives for themselves, and everyone chose for himself one each. And they began to go into them, and were promiscuous with them. And they taught them charms and spells, and they showed them the cutting of roots and trees. And they became pregnant, and bore large giants, and their height was 3,000 cubits. These devoured all the toil of men, until men were unable to sustain them, and the giants turned against them in order to devour men. And they began to sin against birds, and against animals, and against reptiles, and against fish, and they devoured one another's flesh, and drank the blood from it. Then the earth complained about the lawless ones. Chapter 8. And Azazel taught men to make swords, and daggers, and shields, and breastplates, and he showed them the things after these, and the art of making them, bracelets, and ornaments, and the art of making up the eyes, and of beautifying the eyelids, and the most precious stones, and all kinds of colored dyes. And the world was changed. And there was a great impiety, and much fornication, and they went astray, and all their ways became corrupt. Amizarach taught all those who cast spells and cut roots; Armaros, the release of spells; and Barakiel, astrologers; and Kokobiel, portents; and Tamiel taught astrology; and Azradel taught the path of the moon. And at the destruction of men they cried out, and their voices reached heaven. Chapter 9. And then Michael, Gabriel, Suriel, and Uriel looked down from heaven, and saw the mass of blood that was being shed on the earth, and all the iniquity that was being done on the earth. And they said to one another, "Let the devastated earth cry out with the sound of their cries up to the gate of heaven." And now to you, O holy ones of heaven, the souls of men complain, saying, "Bring our complaint before the Most High." And they said to their Lord, the King, "Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings, your glorious throne endures for all the generations of the world, and blessed and praised. You have made everything, and power over everything is yours, and everything is uncovered and open in front of you, and you see everything, and there is nothing that can be hidden from you. See then what Azazel has done, how he has taught all inequity on the earth, and revealed the eternal secrets that are made in heaven. And Semyaza has made known spells, he to whom you gave authority to rule over those who are with him. And they went into the daughters of men together, lay with those women, became unclean, and revealed to them these sins. And the women bore giants, and thereby the whole earth has been filled with blood and iniquity. And now behold, The souls which have died cry out and complain unto the gate of heaven, and their lament has ascended, and they cannot go out in the face of the iniquity which is being committed on the earth. And you know everything before it happens, and you know this, and what concerns each of them, but you say nothing to us. What ought we do to them about this? Chapter 10. And then the Most High, the Great and Holy One, spoke and sent Arzia to the son of Lamech, and said to him, Say to him, in my name, hide yourself, and reveal to him the end which is coming, because the whole earth will be destroyed. A deluge is about to come on all the earth, and all that is in it will be destroyed. And now teach him, so that he may escape, and his offspring may survive for the whole earth. And further, the Lord said to Raphael, Bind Azazel by his hands and his feet, and throw him into the darkness, and split open the desert, which is in Dudael, and throw him there, and throw on him jagged and sharp stones, and cover him with darkness, and let him stay there forever, and cover his face, so that he may not see the light, and so that on the great day of judgment he may be hurled into the fire, and restore the earth which the angels have ruined, and announce the restoration of the earth. For I shall restore the earth, so that not all the sons of men shall be destroyed because of the knowledge which the watchers made known and taught to their sons. And the whole earth has been ruined by the teaching of the works of Azazel, and against him write all sin. And the Lord said to Gabriel, Proceed against the bastards and the reprobates, and against the sons of the fornicators, and destroy the sons of the fornicators, and the sons of the watchers from amongst men, and send them out, and send them against one another, and let them destroy themselves in battle, for they will not have length of days, and they will petition you. But the petitioners will gain nothing in respect of them, for they hope for eternal life, and that each of them will live life for 500 years. And the Lord said to Michael, Go inform Semyaza and the others with him, who have associated with the women to corrupt themselves with them in all their uncleanliness. And when all their sons kill each other, and when they see the destruction of their loved ones, bind them for 70 generations under the hills of the earth until the day of their judgment and of their consummation, until the judgment, which is for all eternity, is accomplished. And in those days they will lead them to the abyss of fire, and in those days they will lead them to the abyss of fire, in torment, and in prison they will be shut up for all eternity. And then Semyaza will be burnt, and from then on destroyed with them. Together they will be bound until the end of all generations, and to destroy all the souls of lust and the sons of the watchers, for they have wronged men. Destroy all wrong from the face of the earth, and every evil work will cease. And now all the righteous will be humble, and will live until they beget thousands, and all the days of their youth and their Sabbaths they will fulfill in peace. And in those days the whole earth will be tilled in righteousness, and all of it will be planted with trees, and it will be filled with blessing. And all the pleasant trees they will plant on it, and they will plant on it vines, and the vine that is planted on it will produce fruit in abundance, and every seed that is sown on it, each measure will produce 1,000, and each measure of olives will produce 10 baths of oil, and you cleanse the earth from all wrong, and from all iniquity, and from all sin, and from all impiety, and from all the uncleanliness which is brought about on the earth. And all the sons of men shall be righteous, and all the nations shall serve and bless me, and all shall worship me. And the earth will be cleansed from all corruption, and from all sin, and from all wrath, and from all torment. And I will not again send a flood upon it for all generations, forever. Chapter 11. And in those days I will open the storehouses of blessing, which are in heaven, so that I may send them down upon the earth, upon the work, and upon the toil of the sons of men. Peace and truth will be united for all the days of eternity, and for all the generations of eternity. Chapter 12. And then Enoch disappeared, and none of the sons of men knew where he was hidden, where he was, or what happened. And all his doings were with the holy ones, and with the watchers in his days. And I, Enoch, was blessing the great Lord and the King of eternity. And behold, the watchers called to me, Enoch, the scribe, and said to me, Enoch, scribe of righteousness, go and inform the watchers of heaven, who have left the high heaven and the holy eternal place, and have corrupted themselves with women, and have done as the sons of men do, and have taken wives for themselves, and have become completely corrupt on the earth. They will have on earth neither peace nor forgiveness of sin, for they will not rejoice in their sons. The slaughter of their beloved ones they will see, and over the destruction of their sons they will lament and petition forever, but they will have neither mercy nor peace. Chapter 13. And Enoch went and said to Azazel, You will not have peace. A severe sentence has come out against you, that you should be bound, and you will have neither rest nor mercy, nor the granting of any petitions, because of the wrong which you have taught, and because of all the works of blasphemy and wrong and sin which you have shown to the sons of men. And then I went and spoke to them all together, and they were all afraid. Fear and trembling seized them, and they asked me to write out for them the record of a petition, so they might receive forgiveness, and to take a record of their petition up to the Lord in heaven. For they were not able from then on to speak, and they did not raise their eyes to heaven, out of shame for the sins for which they had been condemned. And then I wrote out the record of their petition, and their supplication in regard to their spirits, and the deeds of each one of them, and in regard to what they asked, that they should obtain absolution and forbearance. And I went down and sat down by the waters of Dan. In Dan, which is southwest of Hermon, I read out the record of their petition until I fell asleep. And behold, a dream came to me, and visions fell upon me, and I saw a vision of wrath, that I should speak to the sons of heaven and reprove them. And I woke up and went to them, and they were all sitting gathered together as they mourned in Eubilasael, which is between Lebanon and Sinir, with their faces covered. And I spoke in front of them all the visions that I had seen in my sleep, and I began to speak these words to reprove the watchers of heaven. Chapter 14. This book is the word of righteousness and of reproof for the watchers who are from eternity, as the Holy and Great One commanded in that vision. I saw in my sleep what I will now tell, with the tongue of flesh and with my breath, which the Great One has given men in the mouth, so that they might speak with it, and understand with the heart, as he has created and appointed men to understand the word of knowledge. So he created and appointed me to reprove the watchers, the sons of heaven. And I wrote out your petition, but in my vision, thus it appeared that your petition would not be granted to you, for all the days of eternity and complete judgment has been decreed against you, and you will not have peace. And from now on, you will not ascend into heaven for all eternity. And it has been decreed that you will be bound on earth for all the days of eternity. And before this, you will have seen the destruction of your beloved sons, and you will not be able to enjoy them, but they will fall before you by the sword, and your petition will not be granted in respect of them or in respect of yourselves. And while you weep and supplicate, you do not speak a single word from the writings which I have written. And the vision appeared to me as follows: Behold, clouds called me in the vision, and mist called me, and the path of the stars and flashes of lightning hastened me and drove me. And in the visions, winds caused me to fly, and hastened me, and lifted me up into the sky. And I proceeded until I came near a wall, which was made of hailstones, and a tongue of fire surrounded it, and it began to make me afraid. And I went into the tongue of fire, and came near to a large house, which was built of hailstones, and the wall of the house was like a mosaic of hailstones, and its floor was snow. Its roof was like the path of the stars and flashes of lightning, and among them was fiery cherubim, and their sky was like water, and there was a fire burning around its wall, and its door was ablaze with fire. And I went into that house, and it was hot as fire, and as cold as snow, and there was neither pleasure nor life in it. Fear covered me, and trembling took hold of me. And as I was shaking and trembling, I fell on my face. And I saw in the vision, and behold, another house, which was larger than the former, and all its doors were opened before me, and it was built of a tongue of fire. And in everything it so excelled in glory and splendor and size, so that I am unable to describe it to you in its glory and its size. And its floor was fire, and above lightning and the path of the stars, and its roof also was a burning fire. And I looked, and I saw in it a high throne, and its appearance was like ice, and its surrounds like the shining sun, and the sound of cherubim. And from underneath the high throne there flowed out rivers of fire, so that it was impossible to look at. And he who is great in glory sat upon it, and his raiment was brighter than the sun, and whiter than any snow. And no angel could enter. And at the appearance of the face of him who is honored and praised, no creature of flesh could look. A sea of fire burnt around him, and a great fire stood in front of him, and none of those around him came near to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him, but he needed no holy counsel. And the holy ones who were near to him did not leave by night or day, and did not depart from him. And until then I had a covering on my face as I trembled. And the Lord called me with his own mouth, and said to me, "Come here, Enoch, to my holy word." And he lifted me up and brought me near the door, and I looked with my face down. Chapter 15. And he answered me and said to me with his voice, "Hear, do not be afraid, Enoch, you righteous man, and scribe of righteousness. Come here and hear my voice, and go say to the watchers of heaven who sent you to petition on their behalf, you ought to petition on behalf of men, not men on behalf of you. Why have you left the high, holy, and eternal heaven, and lain with women, and become unclean with the daughters of men, and taken wives for yourselves, and done as the sons of the earth, and begotten giant sons? And you were spiritual, holy, living in eternal life, but you became unclean upon the women, and begot children through the blood of flesh, and lusted after the blood of men, and produced flesh and blood, as they do, who die and are destroyed. And for this reason I give men wives, so that they might sow seed in them, and so that children might be born by them, so that deeds might be done on the earth. But you, formerly, were spiritual, living in eternal, immortal life, for all the generations of the world. For this reason I did not arrange wives for you, because the dwelling of the spiritual ones is in heaven. And now the giants who were born from body and flesh will be called evil spirits on the earth, and on the earth will be their dwelling. And evil spirits came out from their flesh, because from above they were created. From the holy watchers was their origin and first foundation. Evil spirits, they will be on earth, and spirits of the evil ones they will be called. And the dwelling of the spirits of heaven is heaven, but the dwelling of the spirits of the earth, who were born on the earth, is earth. And the spirits of the giants do wrong, are corrupt, attack, fight, break on the earth, and cause sorrow. And they eat no food, do not thirst, and are not observed. And these spirits will rise against the sons of men and against the women, because they came out of them during the days of slaughter and destruction. Chapter 16. And the death of the giants, wherever the spirits have gone out from their bodies, their flesh will be destroyed before the judgment. Thus they will be destroyed until the day of the great consummation is accomplished, upon the great age, upon the watchers and the impious ones. And now to the watchers, who sent you to petition on their behalf, who were formerly in heaven. You were in heaven, but its secrets had not yet been revealed to you, and a worthless mystery you knew. This you made known to women in the hardness of your hearts, and through this mystery the women and the men cause evil to increase on the earth. Say to them, therefore, you will not have peace. Chapter 17. And they took me to a place where they were like burning fire, and when they wished, they made themselves look like men. And they led me to a place of storm, and to a mountain, the tip of whose summit reached to heaven. And I saw lighted places, and thunder in the outermost ends, in its depths a bow of fire, and arrows, and their quivers, and a sword of fire, and all the flashes of lightning. And they took me to the water of life, as it is called, and to the fire of the west, which receives every setting of the sun. And I came to a river of fire, whose fire flows like water, and pours out into the great sea, which is towards the west. And I saw all the great rivers, and I reached the great darkness, and went where all flesh walks. And I saw the mountains of darkness of winter, and the place where the water of all the deeps pours out. And I saw the mouths of all the rivers of the earth, and the mouth of the deep. Chapter 18. And I saw the storehouses of all the winds, and I saw how with them he has adorned all creation. And I saw the foundations of the earth, and I saw the cornerstone of the earth, and I saw the four winds which support the earth and the sky. And I saw how the winds stretch out the height of heaven, and how they position themselves between heaven and earth. They are the pillars of heaven. And I saw the winds which turn the sky and cause the disk of the sun and all the stars to set. And I saw the winds on the earth which support the clouds, and I saw the paths of the angels. I saw at the end of the earth the firmament of heaven above. And I went towards the south, and it was burning day and night, where there were 7 mountains of precious stones, 3 towards the east, and 3 towards the south. And those towards the east were of colored stone, and one was of pearl, and one of healing stone, and those towards the south of red stone. And the middle one reached to heaven, like the throne of the Lord of Stibium, and the top of the throne was of sapphire. And I saw burning fire, and what was in all the mountains. And I saw a place there, beyond the great earth. There the waters gathered together. And I saw a deep chasm of the earth, with pillars of heavenly fire. And I saw among them fiery pillars of heaven, which were falling. And as regards both height and depth, they were immeasurable. And beyond this chasm I saw a place, and it had neither the sky above it nor the foundation of earth below it. There was no water on it, and no birds, but it was a desert place. And a terrible thing I saw there, 7 stars, like great burning mountains, and like a spirit questioning me. The angel said, "This is the place of the end of heaven and earth. This is the prison for the stars of heaven and the host of heaven. And the stars which roll over the fire, these are the ones which transgressed the command of the Lord from the beginning of their rising, because they did not come out at their proper times. And he was angry with them, and bound them until the time of the consummation of their sin, in the year of mystery." Chapter 19. And Uriel said to me, "The spirits of the angels who are promiscuous with women will stand here, and they, assuming many forms, made men unclean, and will lead men astray, so that they sacrifice to demons as gods. And they will stand there until the great judgment day, on which they will be judged, so that an end will be made of them. And their wives, having led astray the angels of heaven, will become peaceful. And I, Enoch, alone saw the sight, the ends of everything, and no man has seen what I have seen." Chapter 20. And these are the names of the holy angels who keep watch. Uriel, one of the holy angels, namely, the holy angel of the spirits of men. Raguel, one of the holy angels, who takes vengeance on the world and on the lights. Michael, one of the holy angels, namely, the one put in charge of the best part of humankind, in charge of the nation. Sarachael, one of the holy angels, who is in charge of the spirits of men who cause the spirits to sin. Gabriel, one of the holy angels, who is in charge of the serpents, and the garden, and the cherubim. Chapter 21. And I went round to a place where nothing was made, and I saw a terrible thing, neither the high heaven nor the firm ground, but a desert place, prepared and terrible. And there I saw 7 stars of heaven, bound on it together, like great mountains, and burning like fire. Then I said, for what sin have they been bound, and why have they been thrown there? And Uriel, one of the holy angels, who was with me and led me, spoke to me and said, Enoch, about whom do you ask, and whom do you inquire, ask, and care? These are some of the stars which transgressed the command of the Lord Most High, and they have been bound here until 10,000 ages are completed, the number of days of their sin. And from there I went to another place, more terrible than this, and I saw a terrible thing. There was a great fire there, which burnt and blazed, and the place had a cleft reaching into the abyss, full of great pillars of fire, which were made to fall. Neither its extent nor its size could I see, nor could I see its source. Then I said, how terrible this place, and how painful to look at. Then Uriel, one of the holy angels who was with me, answered me. He answered me and said to me, Enoch, why do you have such fear and terror because of this terrible place and before this pain? And he said to me, this place is the prison of the angels, and there they will be held forever. Chapter 22. And from there I went to another place, and he showed me in the west a large and high mountain, and a hard rock, and 4 beautiful places, and inside it was deep, wide, and very smooth. How smooth is that which rolls, and deep and dark to look at. Then Raphael, one of the holy angels who was with me, answered me and said to me, these beautiful places are there so that the spirits, the souls of the dead, might be gathered into them. For them they were created, so that here they might gather the souls of the sons of men. And these places they made, where they will keep them until the day of judgment, and until their appointed time, and that appointed time will be long, until the great judgment comes upon them. And I saw the spirits of the sons of men who were dead, and their voices reached heaven and complained. Then I asked Raphael, the angel who was with me, and said to him, whose is this spirit, whose voice thus reaches heaven and complains? He answered me and said to me, saying, this spirit is the one that came out of Abel, whom Cain, his brother, killed, and he will complain about him until his offspring are destroyed from the face of the earth, and from amongst the offspring of men, his offspring perish. Then I asked about him, and about judgment on all, and I said, why is one separated from another? And he answered me and said to me, these 3 places were made in order that they might separate the spirits of the dead, and thus the souls of the righteous have been separated. This is the spring of water, and on it the light. Likewise, a place has been created for sinners when they die, and are buried in the earth, and judgment has not come upon them during their life. And here their souls will be separated for this great torment, until the great day of judgment and punishment and torment for those who curse forever, and of vengeance on their souls. And there he will bind them forever. Verily, he is from the beginning of the world. And thus a place has been separated for the souls of those who complain and give information about their destruction, about when they were killed in the days of the sinners. Thus a place has been created for the souls of men who are not righteous, but sinners, accomplished in wrongdoing, and with the wrongdoers will be their lot. But their souls will not be killed on the day of judgment, nor will they rise from here. Then I blessed the Lord of glory and said, Blessed be my Lord, the Lord of glory and righteousness, who rules everything forever. Chapter 23. And from there I went to another place, towards the west, to the ends of the earth. And I saw a fire that burnt and ran, without resting or ceasing from running, by day or by night, but continued in exactly the same way. And I asked, saying, What is this which has no rest? Then Raguel, one of the holy angels who is with me, answered me and said to me, This burning fire, whose course you saw towards the west, is the fire of all the lights of heaven. Chapter 24. And from there I went to another place of the earth, and he showed me a mountain of fire that blazed day and night. And I went towards it, and I saw 7 magnificent mountains, and all were different from one another, and precious and beautiful stones, and all were precious, and their appearance glorious, and their form was beautiful. 3 towards the east, one fixed firmly on another, and 3 towards the south, one on another, and deep and rugged valleys, no one of which was near another. And there was a 7th mountain in the middle of these, and in their height they were all like the seat of a throne, and fragrant trees surrounded it. And there was among them a tree such as which I have never smelt, and none of them or any others were like it. It smells more fragrant than any fragrance, and its leaves, and its flowers, and its wood never wither. Its fruit is good, and its fruit is like bunches of dates on a palm. And then I said, Behold, this beautiful tree, beautiful to look at, and pleasant are its leaves, and its fruit very delightful in appearance. And then Michael, one of the holy and honored angels who was with me and was in charge of them, answered me and said to me, Enoch, why do you ask me about the fragrance of this tree? And why do you inquire to learn? Then I, Enoch, answered him, saying, I wish to learn about everything, but especially about this tree. And he answered me, saying, This high mountain which you saw, whose summit is like the throne of the Lord, is the throne where the Holy and Great One, the Lord of glory, the eternal King, will sit when he comes down to visit the earth for good. And this beautiful and fragrant tree, and no creature of flesh has authority to touch it until the great judgment, when he will take vengeance on all and bring everything to a consummation forever. This will be given to the righteous and the humble. From its fruit, life will be given to the chosen. Towards the north, it will be planted in a holy place by the house of the Lord, the eternal King. Then they will rejoice with joy and be glad in the holy place. They will each draw the fragrance of it into their bones, and they will live a long life on earth as your fathers lived. And in their days sorrow and pain and toil and punishment will not touch them. Then I bless the Lord of glory, the eternal King, because he has prepared such things for righteous men, and has created such things, and said that they are to be given to them. Chapter 26. And from there I went to the middle of the earth, and saw a blessed, well-watered place, which had branches which remained alive, and sprouted from a tree which had been cut down. And there I saw a holy mountain, and under the mountain, to the east of it, there was water, and it flowed towards the south. And I saw towards the east another mountain, which was of the same height, and between them there was a deep and narrow valley, and in it a stream ran by the mountain. And to the west of this one was another mountain, which was lower than it was and not high, and under it there was a valley between them. And there were other deep and dry valleys at the end of the 3 mountains, and all the valleys were deep and narrow of hard rock, and trees were planted on them. And I was amazed at the rock, and I was amazed at the valley. I was very much amazed. Chapter 27. Then I said, what is the purpose of this blessed land, which is completely full of trees, and of this accursed valley in the middle of them? Then Raphael, one of the holy angels who is with me, answered me and said to me, this accursed valley is for those who are cursed forever. Here will be gathered together all who speak with their mouths against the Lord, words that are not fitting, and say hard things about his glory. Here they will gather them together, and here will be their place of judgment. And in the last days there will be a spectacle of the righteous judgment upon them, in front of the righteous forever. For here the merciful will bless the Lord of glory, the eternal King. And in the days of judgment on them they will bless him on account of his mercy, according as he has assigned to them their lot. Then I myself blessed the Lord of glory, and I addressed him, and I remembered his majesty as was fitting. Chapter 28. And from there I went towards the east to the middle of the mountain of the wilderness, and I saw only desert, but it was full of trees from this seed, and water gushed out over it from above. The torrent, which flowed towards the northwest, seemed copious, and from all sides there went up spray and mist. Chapter 29. And I went to another place, away from the wilderness. I came near to the east of this mountain, and there I saw trees of judgment, especially vessels of the fragrance of incense and myrrh, and the trees were not alike. Chapter 30. And above it, above these, above the mountains of the east, and not far away, I saw another place, valleys of water, like that which does not fail. And I saw a beautiful tree, and its fragrance was like that of the mastic. And by the banks of these valleys I saw fragrant cinnamon, and beyond those valleys I came towards the east. Chapter 31. And I saw another mountain on which there were trees, and there flowed out water, and there flowed out from it, as it were, a nectar whose name is styrax and galbanum. And beyond this mountain I saw another mountain, and on it there were aloe trees, and those trees were full of a fruit, which is like an almond, and is hard. And when they take this fruit, it is better than any fragrance. Chapter 32. And after these fragrances, to the north, as I looked over the mountains, I saw 7 mountains full of fine nard, and fragrant trees of cinnamon and pepper. And from there I went over the summits of those mountains, far away to the east, and I went over the Red Sea, and I was far from it, and I went over the angel Zotiel, and I came to the garden of righteousness, and I saw beyond those trees many large trees growing there, sweet smelling, large, very beautiful and glorious, the trees of wisdom, from which they eat and know great wisdom. And it is like the carob tree, and its fruit is like bunches of grapes on a vine, very beautiful. And the smell of this tree spreads and penetrates afar. And I said, this tree is beautiful. How beautiful and pleasing is its appearance. And the holy angel Raphael, who is with me, answered me and said to me, this is the tree of wisdom, from which your ancient father and ancient mother, who were before you, ate and learnt wisdom. And their eyes were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they were driven from the garden. Chapter 33. And from there I went to the ends of the earth, and I saw there large animals, each different from the other, and also birds, which differed in form, beauty, and call, each different from the other. And to the east of these animals I saw the ends of the earth, on which heaven rests, and the open gates of heaven. And I saw how the stars of heaven come out, and counted the gates out of which they come, and wrote down all their outlets, for each one individually, according to their number, and their names, according to their constellations, their positions, their times, and their months, as the angel Uriel, who is with me, showed me. And he showed me everything, and wrote it down. And also their names he wrote down for me, and their laws and their functions. Chapter 34. And from there I went towards the north, to the ends of the earth, and there I saw a great and glorious wonder at the ends of the whole earth. And there I saw 3 gates of heaven. Through each of them north winds go out. When they blow there is cold, hail, hoarfrost, snow, fog, and rain. And from one gate it blows for good. And when they blow through the other 2 gates, it is with force, and it brings torment over the earth, and they blow with force. Chapter 35. And from there I went towards the west, to the ends of the earth, and I saw in the east 3 open gates, as many gates and as many outlets. Chapter 36. And from there I went towards the south, to the ends of the earth, and there I saw 3 gates of heaven open, and the south wind, the mist, and the rain, and wind come out from there. And from there I went towards the east of the ends of heaven, and there I saw the 3 eastern gates of heaven open, and above them there were smaller gates. Through each of these smaller gates the stars of heaven pass, and go towards the west, on the path that has been shown to them. And when I saw, I blessed, and I will always bless the Lord of glory, who has made great and glorious wonders, so that he might show the greatness of his work to his angels, and to the souls of men, so that they might praise his work, and so that all his creatures might see the work of his power, and praise the great work of his hands, and bless him forever.